Hello and welcome back to the Genesis Designs and Modelcraft Bench, and I'm here today with a review of the Zvezda Snap Fit Hurricane IIC British fighter. Right, so this kit is around about the £8 mark in the UK, certainly less than a tenner, should be anyway. 1/72 scale, end opening box, not the best box, a little bit weak. A few pictures on the end, instructions of paint and whatnot there, and on the back there's a few photographs of the completed unpainted model. Now this is a snap fit kit. There are 51 parts in it, and it isn't my first Zvezda snap fit. I've actually done a few. Some of you may be aware, I don't know, they did a series of cartoon kits of planes from the Disney movie Planes. I have built a couple of those, and I also more recently built the Junkers 87 Stuka snap fit kit, and I've got to say I was quite impressed by the whole thing, so that's really why I bought this. I think the Hurricane 2 is the 2C with the cannons, is one of my favourite World War II aircraft. I think they wore some super cool schemes, and that sort of slightly longer nose and the cannon armament I think just makes the Hurricane look way more angry than the earlier versions. So that's why I bought this. Yeah, enough waffle, woman. Shall we have a look at what we get for our very solid investment? There's the box. As I say, it is pretty flimsy, so don't be storing that at the bottom of the stash. Let's look at that lot in a minute, and we'll go for a look at these parts. World's loudest plastic bag, I apologise. As you can see, I haven't been into it yet. Two sprues only. So this one clearly has on it the wings, undercarriage parts, and in fact internal parts. And straight away, I have to say, I think the moulding quality is really very good, and right up there with what you would expect from Zvezda these days. They are one of the better ones, to be fair. All of the panel detail is recessed, ostensibly so. The tyres are one piece and have like a block tread thing going on. But in keeping with the sort of somewhat simplified nature of the kit, the undercarriage legs are quite interesting. But let's bring you up to look at these. You've got the pilot's seat integrated into some framework there. Very nicely done. Panel lines. Now I don't know if it's going to come through on camera, but there is some very slight texture visible in the curved part of this wing. Sort of a machining sort of marks texture. You can see it on the inside too, but obviously it's less well hidden on the inside. The gear legs then, here we go, over here, I've got part of the internal area of the undercarriage door moulded integral with them, and if you then look at the undercarriage door itself, you can see there's a flat right area there for it to attach to. It's quite a clever way of holding the doors on. And obviously again, full span upper and lower wing. Something that seems to be becoming a little more common in 72nd kits, and is a good thing, I think. Certainly aids with any issues you might have with setting dihedral angles. So the other sprue, nominally A, obviously contains the fuselage and all the other parts. The rendition of the sort of fabric effect, or the fabric covered with fuselage, is very nicely done. I do like that. It's crisp and it's obvious without being in your face. I think a lot of fabric effects these days are just so massively overdone. I find it quite irritating, frankly. Likewise, fin and rudder. There's enough texture there for it to look like a fabric covered surface without it being so overstated as to be almost comical. We do have here retracted undercarriage main legs. That's another nice thing. I do like a kit which has a sort of a design feature of a retracted undercarriage. It's not that common even now. For some reason, we have two pilots in the middle there. One of them has got two lobster hands for holding things. The other has got the old one hand on the knee, one lobster hand holding thing. Something pose going on, but in common with other Zvezda kits, the moulding of these is beautiful. This guy's got his goggles on his eyes, where this guy's got them up on his forehead. So I'm going to assume that this is your ready for action pilot guy, and this is your actually in-flight pilot guy. Nice touch. You got your radiator cores here, front and rear faces. Those are nice, got some nice detail on them. I'm saying nice too much. And some separate control surfaces. I'm going to say, yeah, ailerons. Which have got lovely big tabs on them. Oh, in fact, they're going to go onto these posts here, aren't they? I don't think they're separate for the purposes of realism. I think it's probably to make it easier to join the upper and lower parts of the wing together without an obvious joint. Alright then, so these are the parts. I'm hoping against hope that we've got some canopies in here somewhere. Oh yes we do, here they are. So Ziploc bag, the decal sheet and a transparent sprue. So that's a closed canopy, whoopsie. Got the dropsies again. Closed canopy only. Wingtip navigation lights and landing lights. All of which seem to have some very long and expressive attachment points to assist in a snap fit. The main transparency's got a little tab at the rear, and again a little tab at the base of the windscreen. You can actually see them a little bit at this point. Now I think you're going to see them even after the framing is painted, which is potentially slightly disappointing, but it's to be expected. It has to be attached in some fashion. So what else have we got then? It's a little blast sheet, colour schemes, so let's come back to those in a minute. Instructions now. Shouldn't be too complex, it is snap fit after all said and done. Here we go. Assembling versions 1 and 2. Undercarriage retracted or undercarriage lowered. Initial assembly, attaching those ailerons and undercarriage bay parts to the lower wing. And then trapping in those transparent parts when you join the upper and lower surfaces. Then the cockpit gets added, or the sort of cockpit area gets added to the upper surface of the wing. And a point to note here is you have a choice of instrument panels, because there is an included decal for the dials, and you can fit that to a smooth version of the panel if you so desire. Radiator bath. There's some pieces there which says for assembling version 2 only, just the undercarriage up version. These braces, and I don't know what they're for. As I say, you have a choice of pilot, so you've got your ready for action pilot or your in use pilot. Snapping it all together, then adding the undercarriage either raised or retracted or lowered. Placing of technical inscriptions or stencils if you prefer here in this diagram, and that's it. So it's just one folded A2 sheet. Not in colour, but it doesn't need to be. Very simple, very well laid out. I do not know why, just at a glance, we've got these extra braces for version 2 only. But they're obviously going to help hold the fuselage halves together regardless of which version you build. Finally then, colours. Diagram. So you've got three potential schemes included in the kit. Number 1 squadron, day fighter, so that's ocean grey, dark green and medium sea grey with your sky recognition bands and spinner here. Then you've got all over black night fighter. also number 1 squadron from Tangmere. I actually like the blend of the two, the Day Fighter upper surfaces with the black underside is the colour scheme I prefer. And then over leaf we have a Russian version, 78th Fighter Aviation Regiment of the USSR Navy Northern Fleet. Vanger Airfield, Vanger, I don't know. Summer 1943. And actually standard RAF day scheme with some Russian markings added. And this is the normal little colour thing that you get in all the rest of the kits. The paint call outs are Tamiya only. And for some reason they don't call out the actual RAF colours that Tamiya developed when they released their Spitfire 9. Tamiya released a trio of colours to go with it, XF 81, 82 and 83, which cover RAF dark green, ocean grey and medium sea grey, and for some reason Zvezda haven't chosen to tell you about that here. Instead they're saying XF 53 for the ocean grey, which is neutral grey. But there you go, top tip, use XF 81, 82 and 83. Decals themselves, again, standard Zvezda fare, very very thin, quite matte, but I expect they will work absolutely fine because they always do in my experience. We've got a selection of airframe stencils there, walkways for the wings, and there is the instrument panel. It's just printed in white. Do you see it above the JX there? And a little Night Reaper script for the Night Fighter version, which is option 3. So I think since this is a snap fit kit, it would be rude not to go down the quick snip route with it, wouldn't it? See how it fits together. Let's take some of the main parts off and have a quick look. Okay, snipped all the parts off and just done a very basic cleanup of the sprues stubs. I've not gone nuts, and that's deliberate because I've just done a basic cleanup like that to see if there's any fit issues with any of it. So also obviously I haven't cut off all of the parts here, just the sort of main basics to see how it goes. At some risk, it has to be said, of not being able to take some of this apart again, but anyway, I'll shoulder that risk for you. So there's the undercarriage bay attached, just like that, and these aileron pieces just snap into position on these pegs here. Like I say, I think that is in an effort to ease construction rather than some sort of inspirational detailing idea. So here, the main joint of the wing has been moved to underneath the leading edge. Rather than a traditional join along the leading edge, they've moved it back to here and forward here. Which sounds good, but actually where they've positioned it is straight the way down the middle of the flap, which is a little bit silly. If they had put it along the leading edge of the flap, you would automatically potentially be left with a joint that needs no effort. However, it's going straight through the middle of the flap. So if you're concerned about it, that will require remedying. Likewise, this leading edge joint does now travel straight through the middle of what is the sort of leading edge panel work, Again, it could have been moved back to this panel line here, potentially, with a similar effect, but it hasn't been. Let's see how this looks. Here, all those creaky, tight-fitting pegs going in. There we go. It's pretty much there. Alright, so it does say on the box no glue required. However, if the camera will ever focus, can you see how proud that is and how it doesn't want to stay in position? Obviously a touch of glue would sort that instantly, but without glue you're never going to get that sit where it needs to. It also sits quite proud back here in this unnecessary joint line along the flap. As you can see, not great. And for whatever reason, both of my ailerons have defaulted to a slight upward deflection. Very nice. But it is clipped together. So if we just add the radiator cores, they just pop in there. Like so. And then the housing should slip in around them. There we go. Rear half just kind of hooks on, front half presses in. Again, a little bit gappy, consequently. Can't see it because of my light, there you go. Tiny bit gappy in the locating holes, which is a common problem with these kind of kits, but you can spread that out into the gap a little bit, and again with a little touch of glue that'll be fine. So that's the wing constructed. Obviously I've not cut off all the pieces for the fuselage, and as it is, without that middle portion, which it claims is only for version 2, the only points actually holding this together are at the front and the back. But even though that is the case, it is a very, very creditable join, actually. How it fits on the wing. Boom. Just like that. Decent. So the tailplane just kind of wedges into the stop that's left there for it, and then the fin and rudder pop in on top with, they've got hooks on which are going to break when I take this apart again, but clearly I'm going to use glue when I put this together anyway. Alright, that is too tight, that won't go in there. Yeah. Yeah, that peg, this centre peg here, was too big for the hole in the fin, to the point where I've snapped it, getting it back out again. Not to worry. There. Without that interference, that also fits really rather well. Wow, there you go. That's it's gone together alarmingly well, hasn't it? So I did remove the propeller pieces, but truthfully I can't see how these are meant to hold themselves together without glue, especially the spinner. Oh, actually, yeah, I do. Like that. Okay, so you push the little prop thing all the way in. So if I just pop the wing back off and spread the nose pieces a little bit, as I say, this is all at some risk to actually breaking all of these snap fit parts when I actually take it back apart again. So they're sort of semi-sacrificial when they're made out of soft plastic like this. There's lots in there. There, and Hurricane. So that is quite impressive. It does really look the part, doesn't it? In a matter of moments that's together. And of course the fact that sort of areas like these tail parts fit as well as they do, with or without glue, means that you have the option, should you desire it, to paint the camouflage with these pieces not fitted, which can make things so much easier, because especially in this smaller scale, sort of sorting out demarcations and masking in these areas can be quite faffy. It's perfectly possible, of course, but it can be extremely faffy. The fit of the parts everywhere is absolutely extraordinary, apart from, as I say, this trailing edge is a bit dodgy, and the ailerons both point upwards, which I find bizarre, but that is something that you can fix by bending the pieces or scoring them or what have you. It may even be that I've got them on the wrong way round. But yeah, all in all, for the price, I think that looks rather cracking. And as I say, the 2C, it's one of my favourites, and it's criminally under-kitted actually in any scale, so it's nice to see a modern tooling of it, even if it is labelled as a sort of snap together, easy sort of, dare I say it, beginner's kit. The thing is, despite that, the detail is there. With careful assembly and paint and painting, the detail is very adequate, and there's a decent decal sheet too, so all in all I think, oh dear, I think for the very minimal investment required, this is rather lovely. And of course, as hashtag serious modelers, we're not going to rely on the snap together aspect of it anyway for things like this. And I think if there's one drawback to this kit, it is that this swing joint arrangement is just not satisfactory, and it does mean that seam there, when you glue this together, I mean, if you're going to use glue, I would recommend just removing all the snap fit pylons completely and just relying on glue as you would normally, but that joint's going to have to be dealt with for the entirety of that leading edge if you want to build this as a serious model. And as I say, the moulding, the panel lines and the detail are such that you really can put this together as a serious Hurricane and not a potentially sort of a toy one. But anyway, I'll leave it there, and I'll attempt to pull these parts apart again off camera without ruining my £10 Zvezda Hurricane. So yeah, I recommend this if you, like me, are a fan of the Hurricane 2, and also like me, a fan of nice kits that aren't horrifically expensive, as a lot of them are these days, then this is a great purchase, genuinely. And there are plenty of aftermarket decals out there for this aircraft. With that said, all it remains for me to say, all right, hold your horses there, Genesis. There's a PS here. The swing didn't fit together all that well, did it? And the ailerons went a little bit weird, so I thought, after the fact, let's see if we can get this to fit properly, because that's the whole point of a quick snip review, isn't it? So, thinking back a few minutes, I may have mentioned that sometimes with snap fit, and indeed normal locating pegs and whatnot, they actually induce fit errors as opposed to correcting them. And I felt by the feel of the way this thing was going together, that might be the case here. So I snipped off all of the snap fit pegs on this lower wing surface, and I also just clearanced the top of this wheelbase just a touch, not a lot, just sliced a little bit off that leading edge with a scalpel. Very easy to do because this plastic is quite flexible. And yes, some of these pegs did get damaged anyway. I think there's one still in there when I pulled it apart, because as I say, the plastic's quite soft. But anyway, get to the point. Without the pegs in place, look at the difference. You virtually can't see that joint, even though it's running down the middle of a panel, even without any glue. And the same at the back. So that had quite the step, didn't it, in those flat panels. There is still a noticeable joint, but it's a much easier one to deal with, and I do believe that it could be eradicated almost completely with the spending of a couple of minutes here, thinning this rear edge down just a touch. With that done, that would become absolutely flush instead of almost, and then eradicating that joint would be as simple as literally just eradicating that joint instead of having to try and blend a step out. Obviously I can't hold it all in alignment all at the same time, but there you go. Also, the ailerons went a bit weird, didn't they? I think the pressure, because the holes were quite tight, the pressure caused by these tabs was causing issues, and it was making them both deflect upwards. Now without those tabs there, those just slot in and sit there as nice as you like. So a little bit of the Tamiya thick liquid glue on the tab, bosh it in, jobs are good. And if you did want a touch of deflection, it'd be quite easy to engineer that in just by bending that tab a little bit. So there you go. Couple of minutes, that's all that took. A little bit of modification, and then this little toy all of a sudden has become a serious model. Don't discount it, chaps. The cheap purchase price and the snap fit moniker have often gone hand in hand with things that are essentially toys, and not to be treated seriously by us real modelers. Well, not this time. This one is, as you've seen, decent detail, really very good fit with a little tiny bit of fettling of those pegs, and decent decals and all the rest of it. It is a genuinely competitive modern 1/72 kit of the very, very, in my opinion, underrepresented Hurricane IIC. So yeah, cheap, cheerful, and should be a really enjoyable build. And in fact, Jonathan Muck of the Interesting Modelling Company did build one, so if you hop over there to their Facebook page and have a look, you should find it on there. And I think he was pretty happy with it too, notwithstanding that weird wing joint thing. So there you go. Now it really is time for me to say cheerio. So without further ado, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.